looking for fun at a rave on an island full of zombies, awful zombies, looking for one thing. I just want your flesh.
Hi, welcome to Bad Movies Revisited, the show where we'll be revisiting old, not so classic movies to see if they're as bad as we initially remember them to be. Today's episode is going to be on 2003's House of the Dead, directed by Uwe Boll. He often prompts questions such as, how did he get to do this? How did he get to do it again? Who keeps giving him these licenses, and why do stars find it so intriguing to work with him? Usually a payday, but there's got to be more to it than this. There's something that we're not seeing. Uwe Boll is also known for his rather outrageous attacks on critics, people who didn't like his films for very good reasons, as we will discuss throughout this video. He has challenged people to boxing matches in the past. I think he won them as well, so I guess he's good at some things, just not this kind of thing, I suppose. It's kind of funny though, isn't it, trying to fight someone that doesn't like your thing. It's kind of the schoolyard kind of argument of, hey, I might not be able to sing as good as you, but I bet you can't jump as high as I can. Video game movies are often seen as a real mixed bag. They're the good, the bad and the ugly. This film is both the bad and the ugly. In this channel I'm sure we'll get to plenty more of these films, and interestingly enough, his Alone in the Dark movie is often seen as his worst movie, whereas I found that one rather forgettable. This is just bad. The film itself was budgeted with $12 million and made a worldwide gross of $13.8 million, which means that if there was any marketing, it probably didn't make its money back. If there wasn't, which I don't remember there being at the time, then perhaps this can be seen as a financial success. But can you imagine this film? Profitable? Success? Question mark? The movie first caught my attention being a gamer and wondering about how they could turn a razor-thin plot into a full feature movie. They've made more with worse in video game movies in the past. There's a Battleship movie, remember? But it wasn't until I saw this image in a movie magazine, and it was of a woman looking very disappointed in herself, that was being very encroached upon in terms of personal space by a guy who had like a jigsaw kind of face. And to me that isn't kind of the reaction that you tend to see from someone who's face to face with bloody death. This seemed to be the reaction of someone who had kind of been caught stealing and the zombie was mad. And that's a movie I want to see. A fathering, angry, disappointed zombie. So I went out and I bought the DVD, and it has been well worth the money. DVDs come and go. House of the Dead gets to stay. Before we get into the movie, I just wanted to cover the video game itself. And the game itself is set in December the 18th, 1998. I remember the December the 18th part because that's my birthday. 1988 part sticks out because the game itself is from 1996, which is interesting because they give themselves 2 years leeway to try and let society catch up with their idea about the science in reanimating the dead. You know, forward thinking. Space 1999 looks stupid now when you think about it. The two main characters are called Rogan and G. Rogan's fiancée is in Europe with 2 bodyguards. I don't know what she does. Professional bodyguard hire, I suppose. She is kidnapped, but she is able to send out a distress call to Rogan, so the two hop on a plane and get to the Curian mansion in Europe. The 2 bodyguards get killed. We see in the opening FMV, which I found quite curious because they decide to kidnap Sophie. I just found it interesting that zombies want to kidnap. The game itself has no character development to speak of. It's Roy Curian is the mad scientist who reanimated the dead, and he names some of the boss zombies after tarot cards. It's about as interesting and as deep as it gets. The bosses can taunt, there's a headless one, he can't, but not very memorable. Although if you do want to see a memorable moment from a character from House of the Dead, you need only watch Wreck-It Ralph, because the zombie in that support group for bad guys is House of the Dead zombie. The game itself is an on-the-rail-like gun game. It's something that really populates the UK. I don't even know if new arcade machines exist anymore, but it follows the likeness of things like Time Crisis, Point Blank. Each game tries to boast a different type of gun you can use. Similar to the Resident Evil movies, and we'll get there, the filmmakers rejected the premise of the game itself, which would have been about a house with zombies in it. Simple. Instead, they decided to make it a bit more cool, a bit edgy. McGrawer plays as Alicia, who is ostensibly the main character of this movie, even though the floppy-haired guy got the opening narration.
When I came here for a rave, and now all that remains is the rotten smell of death.
It's clear to see later on why she doesn't get to do that on her, as it seemed to be. The interesting thing to pick up about this opening part is the fact that the character mentions that the reason that the two mains broke up.
Simon. But Simon only has eyes for Alicia, my ex. We broke up a few weeks ago so I could study and she could fence. She loves it.
Is because he wanted to blah blah blah, and she wanted to focus on her fencing. And I wonder if that's foreshadowing something. When we see shots of the forest rave that these characters are trying so desperately to get to, I always find it funny that it's actually sponsored by Sega. Now, we do see different types of events all over the world sponsored by different companies. Monster, for instance, can sponsor all sorts of things, Rockstar, but usually they're promoting the drink. Hey, you like our concert? Buy our drink. But with Sega, it's more of, you like our rave? Keep your eye out in video game stores to see if any of the boxes have our logo on, and then think about how much fun you had here, and think how that could translate into this game, Sonic 2006 or whatever.
In terms of star power, we have Clint Howard and Jurgen Prochnow from Judge Dredd and Das Boot, and we also have a young Erica Durance, who is pre-Smallville. Somebody save me, indeed. In terms of character chemistry, the campsite offers a moment where we can try and get to like these characters, hopefully miss them when they're gone, and it's just awkward interactions all around, unfortunately, limited development and failed attempts at comedy. Then looking at the rave section, through a form of video camera exposition, we see a little bit about the attack and how plain and bland the dialogue is.
Best that could get away. Did. We ran. We finally got to the boat, but it wasn't there.
Them? Who the hell is them?
Who? Try what?
What?
Those are reanimated corpses, just like out of a Romero movie.
A what?
A Romero movie, you know, like the Holy Trilogy?
At this point, they invoke the Romero name. Romero was in George A. Romero, as in the guy that created Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, Land of the Dead. He also did Survival and Diary of the Dead, which we'll probably get to one day. But why would you invoke the memory of quality when you're in a place of no quality? It's just gonna bum out your audience. Anyone that you could say Romero, but don't tell them why, because they'll be like, oh, I wish I was watching that instead. And you do wish that you were watching that instead. Before Ethan Hawke is then killed by a snap to the neck, the lamest and worst of all cinematic deaths in my estimation. Anytime you see neck snaps in movies, it's usually terrible. It's usually somebody doing this. Somebody just twists their neck 20 degrees, you know, that thing that we can all kind of do pretty easily, but instead, without somebody doing it for you, you're dead. It's the worst thing in the world. It's never looked good. You need the proper turny ones, but even normal people can do that as well. I think it's just something we should retire in general. And it begs the question as well, why are these zombies trained with stealth kills? Like they learned it from a video game skill tree.
The film goes from bad to worse here. As you can see, it's raining where it was always. We're about to get a quick succession of characters and involved actions from zombies with swimmers.
Simon! Simon! No, don't jump in the water! Simon!
Divers. The gigglers. Martial artists. characters.
Through the forest, men go the first shots of zombies chasing through the woods. Then they transform into points out of the Shire. Another reminder that you could be watching a better movie. See, look how good films can be if you straight up copy someone else's work from 2 years prior. This also suggests that the zombies are working on that dreaded fifth sense, smell, but they aren't quite there yet. After a scene where Kirk reveals a box of guns that has firearms that clearly won't fit in the creepers holes
Film gets really good right now. This is where all the crazy action is going through. A lot of repeated shots, just keep knocking around different locations. There's the slow-mo 360 action, there's rain when it shouldn't be raining, there's clips of the video game, and look at this. What was that for? That's so much money because of absolutely nothing. To do these shots, they need to put a rocket on a camera to spin it around like Matrix did. As you can see, these characters are terrified that they're about to be hit by a rocket-powered camera. This bit's amazing. This perfect form on that forward tuck. She jumps into the trajectory of the axe. CG bullet. Takes out the zombie. Axe misses her. Springboard. Jurassic Park. What's going on right now? Explosions. And as we see, Liberty takes the L here. He seems pretty broken up about it. And then he has a little bit of a flashback of all the parts of the movie he hasn't been in. A little isolated death moment there. And the barricaded from the outside.
This part of the movie doesn't really make sense because they've already been in this house before and now they suddenly can't get into the house again, almost as if the doors have been locked by maybe the main villain of the movie. But later on we see the main villain of the movie lure them into a place that they were going to go already. So it makes you wonder, why did he lock the doors? Did he want it so that he would pull down the barricade on the windows? The barricade on the windows is actually on the outside of the building as opposed to barricading yourself in. So rather than protecting themselves or fortifying the building, it looks like they're trying to get into a condemned inner city building, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I mean, can we take a moment to just compare the Carrie mansion to this rusted old cottage? It's like, this is a house of the dead. This is what it's supposed to be about. This is what the whole crux of the movie is, the house of the dead. And it just looks like one that was on the island anywhere. No location scouting, just house. That's it. We're then treated to a further form of exposition. This time it's through the idea of a storybook telling, which is particularly strange because it refers to the main villain in the third person, yet the main villain is supposed to be the only survivor. You know, the guy that killed everyone in Black Pearl and somehow managed to find its way ashore to the island and water.
Looks like a ship's journal. And according to the officer's logs, it says that Castillo's hermano killed the captain, then beached the ship and lit it on fire.
Oh, so the stories that Kirk told us make sense now.
So, I don't know. Maybe he just wants to seem a little more cinematic. Somebody has to win this, right?
Check it out, guys. There's a whistling zombie as well. Add that to the list.
Salish? Salish!
We get to the final two auxiliary deaths next. We have the plaster face guy. He ignites an explosive barrel purely because the zombies seem to have stretched out the collar on his shirt. People have killed and died for less, I suppose. And then we have the final auxiliary character who claims that she got this, and then she quickly realizes she don't got this, and then she died. Got this.
I'll take care of these guys.
This is the actual sequence of the film I actually kind of like. You know, we get the returning Bro character from earlier on in the movie. He does his best quiet place kind of situation, best gentleman kind of thing. He's looking kind of cool in his hood, basically. He kills a zombie by stabbing it through the back and lures them over to his lab, pulls his face off, turns out it's the Pirate King zombie himself, which is weird because he just killed one of his little tunnel zombies. That was kind of unnecessary, and he was leading them to a place where these characters were clearly going to go already, which is kind of odd as well. You know, these zombies, they don't grow on trees. Moss grows on them, but they don't grow on moss. We have a moment as well where these characters basically say, why do you want to be immortal?
Because I'm a creature. You created it all so you could be immortal. Why?
To live forever. It works. After all these years, it finally works.
And the Zombie King says, to live forever. And it's like, it's so weird. Why would you write yourself into that, like, duh of a corner? It's kind of like, the Zombie King's reaction should have been, what do you think? Is it to live forever? Yeah. Why would you do it?
I've been waiting for you for a long time.
What do you want?
I just want your flesh.
The explosion clearly kills the pirate bat, but clearly doesn't, because here he is again. A sword fight then breaks out, so this explains why she did fencing.
She's really kicking some ass right now, doing great. Oh, she's dead. Never mind.
Puzzling, one of the last moments of character interaction is rudeness between these people that have come to save them and the guy himself.
Who are you? Who are you? We're here to rescue you. Oh, thanks.
I guess it's trying to have like one little last laugh, but you can't really have a last laugh if you haven't had a first one. And I mean, you could have one, which would be the first and the last laugh, but this one didn't have a first or a last laugh. It just has some wet farts. Wet farts would have been funnier, actually.
What's your name? Rudolph? You got a last name? Curian.
So this movie does actually have sequels as well, not related to what happened here, but they're more unrelated sequels in general, to the point where they were actually different films when they were made, and then they just thought, hey, let's just grab onto that franchise, see if we can get some of that sweet House of the Dead money. They didn't get much of that sweet House of the Dead. So, on the rewatch, House of the Dead still sucks. It's still a bad movie. It's just unequivocally bad. There's nothing good about it except for the things that aren't meant to be good. They're good because they're so bad it's good. It's very difficult to imagine this film going through editing. It's difficult to imagine things getting shot a second time. It's hard to imagine somebody saying, hey, let's wait 5 minutes so it can stop raining. It's hard to imagine people go, hey, let's wait 5 minutes so we can set up a camera, even. I don't know, maybe it's that Ed Wood thing of, wow, this guy can film a movie in an hour and a half. It's so sloppy, it's so amateurish, but there is money behind it that they could have spent less, they could have done less and made a better movie. All in all, I do recommend watching this film. It's fantastic to watch with friends. I used to watch it with friends back when I had them. But it's really good anyway, just to see how bad things can get. It really puts perspective on films. I mean, you can judge big blockbusters saying that they're not very good, they're not very interesting, not very developed, not very clear, poorly made, poorly written, whatever. And this is the example of putting all of those criticisms to the max. If you want to enjoy a film, watch this first, and then whatever you watch next will be better by comparison. It's just maths. It's just maths.